If you need to restore an axe, we're gonna do it. This axe actually belongs to our cinematographer's buddy, and he let him borrow it. He wants to return it nicer than he got it. The process is get rid of the old stuff. We're gonna sandblast the head, find out how much of the heat treat's been nubbed off, and just restore it into a workable tool so that it's not like a Gucci, you know, hang it on your wall thing. It's gonna be a usable tool again. That's it. Handles out. Let's go sandblast it. So it's out of the sandblaster. This one's actually in really good condition, and I don't want to reshape it. I just want to take off any nicks or scratches or dents that might have happened. Being careful not to heat any of the parts. I'm literally just gonna kiss it on the edge. I'm gonna get my trusty blue point grinder here. We're just gonna take off the little sharp edge so that it receives the wood without scuffing it. Ready to rock. But I'm gonna use a DA just to get some of the scratches that are right at the surface. And I don't wanna mess with that logo because it's cool. All right, so to give this thing a nice warm, weathered tool look, we're gonna use some gun bluing acid. And I've seen a whole bunch of folks use all sorts of crazy concoctions, but they make something specifically for this. A lot of companies make it, but it's basically gun bluing acid. Definitely wear gloves, wear eye protection. You spray it down, you wash it off with water as fast as you can. If you want it to be black, if you leave it, you can leave it long enough for it to end up looking like the Statue of Liberty. I mean, just this bronzy, you know, green look. All right, so from this stage, to neutralize the acid, just take it over to the bucket of water or a sink. I don't have a bucket of water around here, so I'm just gonna take it to the sink, rinse it off. It'll end up looking just like this, but it'll stop the acid from reacting. This is the original handle right here. It feels great. It's thin. Actually, the top is pretty close, and so is the very, very bottom. But of course, it's super fat. I'm gonna measure the thickness, because I gotta mark the center. So in order to cut it and make it match the other one, you find your center line. So I'm gonna mark it in 3 different spots. Mark my center, run a straight edge, mark that, And then from there, I will copy the measurements from the original one and mark them, and then we take them to the bandsaw and rip both sides, flip it on its side, and then rip the long side. All right, there you go. So now we're getting closer to the original shape. Now we got to take all these corners and file them down. You can use a traditional raspy file, or use your power tools like your bandsaw or whatever. I actually like to use a flap disc on a metal grinder because it's super quick, and then you can fine tune it after the fact. So I think I'm going to do that first. I want to get this edge right about here. I just want to try to pass the split. We got to insert this as far as it goes and then start tapering it down, sanding it down. We're almost at the top, which is going to get cut off anyway. So I'm just going to mark this, and I got to come all the way down to here, at least as much as I can. So once this comes out, you'll be able to see where it's rubbed, and that's what you sand down all the way until you get down to the, to your desired location. So, and if you have to, you cut that relief down further so that you can get that full wedge in there. This is also a good time to make sure that your head is lined up. Since this is a mass-produced part, it could be fatter on one side, which will pitch your blade over. So just keep checking it as you keep fitting it to make sure that your blade isn't out of whack. I'm pretty much done with the fitting. One thing you want to notice and make sure you don't fall into the same trap that, I've done it before too when I started and I realized that it can't swedge anymore. This is why we kind of rounded off these corners, these hard edges, so that it didn't dig. But if you have a shelf or a hard line, you'll start to spall the wood and you don't want it to splinter. So once you get it to its living place, feather that in a little bit. It won't be able to come out of it, but you just don't want it to have a hard line or a hard shelf. I'm going to give ourselves a 1/4 inch so that when we cut it, we can leave this proud. When you put the wedge in, it has somewhere to swedge up against, and that just kind of ensures it doesn't go out. It's not necessarily the American way to do it, but it's just safer. It kind of looks cool. So I put some 200 grit sticky back on what would normally be an automotive foam block, and this is done to flatten out imperfections. So rough paper makes things flat, fine paper makes things smooth. You don't necessarily want to make this smooth, at least I don't. I'm going to come back in and rough it up, especially where your hands end up stopping, but I want to take any big bumps out of it so that it doesn't feel funky. So this is just to flatten stuff out, not to smooth it out. So I'm pretty close at the bottom. I'm gonna cut this little factory edge off of it because it's kind of, you know, it's ugly, doesn't feel good. But once you've sanded this and you've shaped it, make sure you put a chamfer on the corner so that if you knock the bottom on something, it doesn't spall that piece of wood. So a nice little soft chamfer will save your handle. Because this handle started out as a mass-produced handle that we modified, you know, they're not made to fit every single type of head. So there's a little gap right in this corner and a little gap in that corner. Once this is seated, that gap will get better. But this wedge is not as wide as the opening. So what I will do is I'll knock off a corner. I'll get this thing to seat all the way up against the edge, and then I'll get some of another wedge. Just get like a 1/4 inch of this thing, and I'm gonna make it sit all the way up against this edge. You know, button them up, gluing them just like you're supposed to, but I just don't wanna see, even though it's centered, you don't wanna see a gap at all. Now we're gonna give this thing a little style. Well, you saw we started with something pretty rough, and now we got this guy. This is a little bit different than nice, you know, what we were calling the Gucci axes. It's a little bit unconventional. I didn't use all the same traditional tools because, I mean, this thing's just gonna get worked as soon as it comes out my hands. Nicely reconditioned, really sharp edges. All the rust and pits and stuff are gone. Obviously a new handle, shaped and tapered the way the original one was, and this is gonna go start chopping up some limbs and some wood. I hope he enjoys it.